Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know.
Hola, bon dia, alegria. Monson here with the Good Morning Portugal show. Not a live stream, but definitely a podcast and a little bit of a Substack that we're experimenting with as well. Wishing you a boa semana on this, the 19th of May, 2025. And we are, well, it's already in progress. The real estate revolution has already started here in Portugal. And at the forefront of this great change in Portuguese society is my great friend in the north of Portugal, Vitor Costa. Let's bring him onto the screen. Hello, opening the door to Portugal for the foreigners we've been talking about, myself included, and other friends in this community. What's going on in real estate in Portugal, and why does it need a revolution?
Well, that's a good question. So let me put it this way, and this will help put in context people who may be from the US or Canada and stuff like that are used to the system there. And there are many things that we may take for granted in other countries. Also, because I did take a lot of things for granted in Portugal until I started working with expats, because it made me realize a lot more what we actually do have here, right?
Yes.
So just to set the stage. So one day I had a friend, had a home he wanted to sell in the US. I called an EXP agent from that location, asked if they worked the area. And she said, okay, can you tell me what the address is? And I'm like, sure, the address is ta. She's like, okay, give me just a second. All right, so your friend is named so-and-so. He lives here. He bought the home in 2023 for this amount. He has this on the mortgage. Yes, we can take care of that. The property price is probably going to be around this and that. And I'm like, wow.
Wow, yes.
So now, let me tell you how that works in Portugal, right? If there is a home in Portugal and I want to know, I don't know, how much it got sold for, what the property details are, and all of this, I'll have to, the easiest method, okay? You have to talk to the owner, right? You need to see the property documents, which they may or may not have at hand or know where they are. Alternatively, you need to go to the camera or whatever, and all kinds of different agencies to figure out. Each one has one of the several documents that you need for the property, right? Once you have all of the documentation, you need to trust that that documentation is accurate, because especially back then, a lot of the information such as square meters, bedrooms, descriptions, all of these things was, trust in what the other person was saying. Okay, how big is a property? About 400 meters. Okay, 400 square meters it is, right? And I've seen this happen in person.
Right.
All right? I've had a listing. We had the documents. The property had roughly 1,800 square meters total with the two combined properties. And then one document had a typo on the article number, so we had to change it. And when it came back, that land went from, I think, 1,400 square meters to 260 square meters. Right. Excuse me, this is not correct. Here's the documentation. Because apparently the zero that got stamped like 40 years ago was right on top of the letter M, and so that disappeared. And so they corrected it, and now it had 2,600 square meters, which is also not okay. So we had to fight to get all of that fixed and worked, right? And then we had to do a map, like outline of the property. But the lady, it was like the first time she was using the computer, she was clicking all over the place, and I'm like, no, the boundary is here, not there. But she felt like, this is good enough. And I'm like, okay, maybe this will have some sort of confirmation by another vetted professional, because they hadn't even went to the property. We literally pulled up the map. I said, the boundaries are this, right? I'm just saying, because I'm the real estate agent. I'm not, I didn't go there and measure or anything, right? I'm saying this is about it. I was expecting they would confirm the data, but no, she just clicked around and boom, here's your document printed and signed. That being said, right, it's very tricky to actually appraise properties correctly here in Portugal as well. Mm-hmm. So that is why I've been refining and updating my methods. I have one right now that I believe is pretty decent at coming up with the price of a property. And it mostly boils down to Here in Portugal, you do need to think about prices as more subjective numbers, right? One of the hardest things that I struggled with when I was an agent starting here in Portugal was that I always tried to find the precise, exact mathematical value of that property.
Mm-hmm.
But I really don't think that way anymore for several reasons, right? So you have many ways that you can value a property. And if you really boil down, in essence, all of them are about comparisons. I now understand that everything we have in life is about comparisons, right? So,
Relativity, yeah.
yeah. So, for example, if something costs $5, right, you're going to compare it not only what you can do with it, but with other things around that thing that you're trying to buy, right? $5 for a phone. That's stupid, incredibly dirt cheap. Almost everybody would buy it, even if they didn't need a new phone, right? But if you have $5 for a stick of chewing gum, then that's ridiculous. Either that thing is gold plated, whatever, best experience in the world,
Do you
which again
buy?
you're going to
Yeah.
compare.
Do you buy chewing gum?
Yeah, exactly, right? And so when it comes to properties, so the main thing I think right now is comparing to other properties that may be on the market, which is also sometimes difficult because, especially here in the northern regions, you have maybe three other properties that are on the market, some of them for 2 3 years, right? So what's the price really? How can you accurately measure it? So if we're talking to, for example, the seller, right? Imagine I'm representing the seller. The price that we would have to price that property on would have to be something that, for that amount, if you look at other properties on the market, this would at least be as desirable, if not more, for the same price,
Yes.
right? So that is point number one. And then, of course, you can also compare with how much would it cost you to build a new property from scratch. But then you'd have to, buy the land, do the licensing, which sometimes takes like 2 years or more to start construction, right? So that is why I think we kind of need some sort of revolution in Portuguese real estate, because not only is all information hard to get, agents, anybody can become an agent. There's no barrier of entry. You yourself, after this meeting, you can almost definitely go to some real estate agency here in Portugal. Hey, I want to sell properties. I don't really speak Portuguese. They're like, perfect. You're a service provider. You'll handle all our foreigners, whatever. And so they just sign you on. Congratulations, you're a real estate agent. And then they'll give you a training, which I haven't seen the training of every real estate agency, but the most of the ones I saw, at least 95% of their curriculum is all about how you can get more clients, which I understand you do need to grow your business, get clients, otherwise it doesn't work. But at the same time, you don't really learn how to be an agent, how to provide value, how to understand, the documentation, the properties, the clients, the laws. It took me like 2 years of being a real estate agent until someone even suggested that it may be perhaps a good idea to understand real estate law, right?
Well, that's right. And what are you supposed to do in those 2 years? How are you making a living while you're becoming better trained and better aware of the situation? This is another reason why we need to
That's
change.
the thing. That's the thing, right? So I feel that almost every real estate agent here in Portugal is a part-time agent.
Yeah.
Because, for example, the US, I believe, also has a lot more real estate agents than they need. All right. And it's not me saying this. I've seen several real estate coaches from Brandon Mulrenin, Tom Ferry, so on and so forth. And they all say that they have about 80% more agents than necessary. Like you could take 80% off, and that's how many good real estate agents you would need. But here, right, in the US, you have to take your license, take a degree. As I understand it, it costs about $1,000 or something. It takes you about a month to go through all of that training. You need to pass a test that's kind of like driver's lessons, where if you fail 2 or 3 questions, then you have to retake the whole thing. You need to understand residential, commercial, appraised properties, all of that information. But here in Portugal, again, you just knock on the door. Congratulations, you're an agent.
Yeah.
The problem is that most of them, because there's no barrier to entry, it's just your part-time job. So you work somewhere, you become a real estate agent so you can make a few thousands, quote unquote, on the side as you're working. And as a result, over 50% of agents that I call that I have properties interested or that my clients are interested on, they don't pick up the phone. I'm guessing because they're at their real work.
Yet they are. You're getting a part-time service, aren't you, from those part-time workers? And that's, that's not a criticism, really. That's just how it is here until things change.
And the problem is, it did take me 2 years until I got my first real estate commission.
Yeah.
So 9 out of 10 agents quit before their second year.
Yes.
And the thing is that I was doing my best to learn and do more. That's why I had to start seeing videos of American real estate coaches, because I wasn't really getting that here. And then when I would figure out, for example, that some things that I could add of value is knowing the market, knowing the average prices, what goes in, what goes out, time on the market, all of this information. And then I would ask the coach at the agency that I was, he would tell me, oh, shut up with those American ideas. Just do your lead gen, you have enough training to call clients. And it saddens me a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because another thing here, and this is just huge info dump, but another thing here in Portugal that's unfortunately very common is the non-exclusive listing. I've explained this before, but I'm going to say it again. So let's say you have a home for sale, right? What most Portuguese sellers prefer, and I understand, again, we can get into that if you'd like, is a non-exclusive listing, which means, yeah, Vitor, I want you to sell my home, but I don't give you exclusive. What that means is that we could sign, I could market and sell your property and all of that, but you could also list with several other agencies, as many as you wanted. And you yourself could also be selling your own property. You can have your own listing, which for the seller is free on Idealista, right? So the agents, we pay over 200 euros a month to have our listings there, but the seller can do it for free.
Wow.
And the reason why sellers do this is because, hey, if I find the buyer, I don't want to have to pay you commission.
Yeah.
And this is a problem, in my opinion, from both sides, right? Which is, so the sellers just want to take advantage of someone's work without having to pay them anything. And the agents, they accept it because they're not trained. It's probably their part-time job. And they just say, hey, if it sells, I get the good commission. If it doesn't sell, I'll have one more on the internet.
And the result of that, I think, generally is less than optimal service. Let's face it. And what I think you're doing, I think, and more people. This is in the post for Portugal. I think is the advent and reality of the buyer's agreement or agreements of exclusivity and more commitment, I suppose, rather than this like throw everything up in the air and throw everything at the wall. Some of it will stick, something might sell, might get a little bit of commission. This is all gradually, I think, being, I don't know if the right word is professionalized, but it's changing. And it is a change for the better. And all change, we know as human beings, is difficult, but this is a move in the right direction. What have you got to say about the buyer's agreement particularly? It's a brave step to take for any agent working in Portugal.
That is a beautiful question. And besides my mentor here in Portugal, one of my mentors, I think me and him are probably one of the few agents that I know of here in Portugal. I'm sure there are a few more, but we're probably some of the few that actually uses a buyer's agreement. Okay. And what is a buyer's exclusive agreement? It means that you have one buyer's agent that represents you into the search of your property. So Let me put it this way, right? There are kind of three types of agents you can be working with here in Portugal if you're a buyer, right? You can work with someone who will hunt for you, someone that you sign a buyer's exclusive representation agreement. They will go out there, see what exists, hunt it down, and then they will help you hunt that thing. You have people who are hunting you, which is the seller's agents. They're representing the seller. They just want a sale. In fact, I would say many of them aren't even representing the seller. They just want a sale. I've had cases where I threw a very low offer. I knew that my clients would take like 20, 30,000 more if they countered. They didn't even try to counter negotiation. They just called me to see if we could come up with a plan to pressure the seller into accepting the lowball offer, which I found really weird personally, even though, okay, it's good for my client, so I'm not going to complain. But it was weird in that regard. And then you have people who just, go gather the spoils for you. So what I see a lot happening here in Portugal, which I don't think has been very effective, is expats tend to talk to several agents, tell them what they want, and then everybody goes out, scatters, trying to see once in a while they found a property here and there. Oh, by the way, have you seen this one? Have you seen that one? Right? And then maybe they buy, maybe they don't. Even the other day, I've had a meeting with another expat that they're looking to invest. Had a meeting with that mentor I mentioned, who's also an investor. He showed them their value proposition, how they work, all of this, sent them the contract and the terms so they could review. And then their concern was that, hey, but we've been talking to some agents the last few years. They send us properties once in a while. So, they were a bit against the exclusive buyer's agreement because they didn't want to slight these other agents, which I understand. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I've heard them say that the other agents weren't really good, weren't really professional, didn't understand investing. And so it's this relationship of just talk to everybody. They'll go all go searching for you, and then only one of them is going to get the spoils.
Yeah.
Right. And it happened to me also many times. I've had several situations where I was working with clients without representation, without an agreement. We found a home, everything was fine. We were moving forward. Talking to the other agencies, spent the day on the phone and emails and whatever to fine-tuning the details, sending documents, reviewing contract, making sure everything is okay. Then the next morning, they give me a call. Hey, Vitor, we actually ended up buying somewhere else. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Nobody wants that, do they? Well,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I see this as a teamwork, both when you're working with sellers and when you're working with buyers. I like working as a team with someone. It's you and me versus the world.
Yes.
I'll do my part. I'll do everything here. If you need to contact any agency or whatever, let me do that so we can have the foot in the door. And then as a reward for the work, of course, we have kind of that commitment. Because if we don't have that commitment, even though I do like to help, I can end up in situations where, okay, perfect. So I spent like 5 months working for this client. They ended up buying with somewhere else because they found something somewhere, right? Just walking down the street, they saw a sign, they called it, they sold it. Congratulations for them. But now this thing I was relying on to feed my family is no longer available. So
it's grossly unfair. It is grossly unfair, no question about that.
I'm not judging the clients, by the way, just to be clear.
Their reaction is a product of the culture, isn't it?
That too, yeah. And it's my fault for not having set the standards earlier.
Yep, that's also true, is it not? So there you go. If you want professional, full-time support, there has to be a commitment there, and that's what you'll get. You talked about putting a foot in the door. How about this for a link? Putting a foot in the Portugal door. Find out more about what Vitor can do for you, and meet Maria, wife Maria, there on the right of the screen, obviously.
Her belly is bigger now.
Her belly's bigger now than it was. Yeah, the great news that you shared with us last time, and a bigger family to feed. So get in touch with Vitor at portugaldoor.com, and I will put that link in the chat. Final words from you. Then we talked today longer than we normally would, but these are very important issues. And I think a good decoding, not only of the Portuguese political system and landscape, but also that of the real estate scene as well, in which you are becoming increasingly known, I think, gathering momentum as the real estate revolutionary, Vitor Costa. Your last word to you.
Well, again, more and more, I'm in favor of there should be a buyer's agent on one side, a seller's agent on the other side, and they both should be professional. Yeah. I would recommend people, instead of talking to all of them all at once, pick one of them, or interview several, but pick one of them, commit to those people. If they don't offer you a contract, ask them to give you a contract. I'd be happy to do that for you. But even if you don't do that with me, at least pick another agent and do that with them and commit.
Yes.
Because, like, see this thing right here? That's commitment. We could just go on and whatever and have this, more modern view where, hey, if it starts not really working, we'll just discard it. No, you commit first.
Absolutely.
Will there be better people out there? I kind of doubt it, but maybe. Will Maria maybe find a better man out there? I don't know, maybe some guy that was richer or handsomer or whatever.
It's hard to imagine, Vitor. It's hard to imagine. Right? Yes.
But if you don't commit, then nothing happens. Absolutely. So if you want to do things with a purpose, do your due diligence, filter things out very, very well, and when it's time to make a decision, make a decision.
Yeah, that makes it attractive and substantial, and I feel a warm glow in my heart, and I wish you all the best with your approach, because I know you're up against it. You're swimming against the cultural tide here, but I suspect that vision will with you and others working in this way will be realized in time here in Portugal, and it's all for the good in my view.
Funny you mentioned that. If you don't mind me adding, my favorite thing about being like this, it also frees me up so much more into being an anomaly, an exception in the real estate market. What do I mean by this? A few times now, I would have situations where, like, hey, this is Vitor from EXP. I'm working with some clients who are interested in your listing. And they're like, so it's actually our policy not to work with other agencies because we had bad experiences in the past. Yeah, I understand that. Nobody likes taken advantage of, and I know that a lot of things can happen. Hey, would it be impossible for me to talk to the broker just to see if everything is okay? Because we want to make things right, whatever. I always get the foot in the door, right? If I would just to accept the normal things as they are, hey, we don't share with other agencies. Okay, sorry, thank you very much. And then I'd send my clients off somewhere, right? Yeah. Or I would tell them, oh, actually, the property is not available. We need to look for something else just because I can't get commission out of it.
Yeah,
so there's always a way.
Yes, absolutely.
The buyer's agreement does help a bit with this.
Okay, putting a foot in the door, opening the door, your door into Portugal. Work with Vitor Costa. We'll talk to him again next month. And in the meantime, wishing you and your lovely family very well. Thank you, Vitor. Boa semana. Ciao, ciao.
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need